Hello YouTube and welcome to another exciting video of Deaths of Athazar, the card game. And in this video we're going to continue our game from the last video and try to help you guys go through a game so you can be a better player at DOA. In the last video, one of the things we talked about was when you go through the first two phases of the game, there are a couple of things that you need to take note of as you play. The first thing is you have to kind of keep track of the number of cards on the pass, because the number of cards on the pass will give you some indication of how many hunters are in the deck. That's very important because you want to make sure that when you know the number of hunters that are out there, they'll let you know the possibility of the hunters coming back to you. And if you have hunters keep coming back to you, it's going to keep you from excelling at the game against your opponents. The second thing we talked about was the card count. After everyone has played their cards and have passed the cards around, you should try to keep a mental count of how many cards each person should have. And at the end of the last video, we saw that the player on the right ended up with 5 cards. The player opposite us ended up with 5 cards. Player on the left is in the lead with 4. And then the last thing that you want to take note of is the cards in the graveyard. The cards in the graveyard will give us some indication of how many characters are left in the deck. The reason why you can figure that out is because if you know if you implement one of the strategies that we've talked about knowing the deck, you can deduce how many cards are left of that particular character. In the last video, we learned that a player had played Princess and 2 Magicians, so that lets us know that the Princess is definitely out of the deck. There are no more Princesses in the deck. 2 Magicians, that indicates that there are about 3 more Magicians around at play. 1 assassin in the graveyard means that there are about 8 more assassins out there. Oh, I'm sorry, not 8. There's 6. There are 6 assassins. And we have 3 brawlers, which means that there are 6 brawlers left. 1 sailor lets us know that there are 8 sailors left. And 1 archer lets us know that there are 2 archers left. All right, so this is very good information that you want to try to keep in mind as you play the game, because this type of information is going to influence your decision making on the next phase, which is the deal phase. So on the deal phase, each character gets 1 extra card from the deck. And on the deal phase, that means each player's card count will increase by 1. And on the deal phase, you end up getting another archer. Okay, and one of the things that we want to try to do is, again, we want to make sure that we put our cards in first, seconds, and thirds. And if you look at the cards that we have here, again, we want to try to keep the sorcerer and the merchant around because so far we've only done 1 round. And to try to use them after 1 round is not the most effective way to use those. You always want to try to use those cards in a situation where one of your opponents is so further in the lead that you're going to have to try to stop him as soon as possible. The last 2 cards are the Hunter and the Brawler. Those are the 2 lowest cards in our hand. And we're going to use the Assassin to kill the Archer off when it's our turn. We're going to leave those as seconds. Okay. And also the one thing that you want to also kind of keep track of is, in the last video, we know that of the 6 cards, 2 of the cards on the player to our right is either a hunter or a sailor, because we passed those 2 cards to that player in the last pass phase. And we also saw that player on the right passed 2 cards over to the opposite player. And when any 2 cards are passed, we know one of them, again, at least is a hunter. We know for sure that in 2 of our players' hands, we know what cards they have. All right, so we're going to go ahead and do the pass phase. All right. Now on the pass phase, we went ahead and passed our Hunter Brawler. Okay. And on the incoming card, we end up getting another Brawler. And as you can see on the pass, I pass 2. Player on the right passes 2. Player opposite passes 2. And the player on the left passes 1. So now what we know for sure is that each player opposite us has a hunter. So we have at least 3 hunters out in the game. Well, the one thing you want to be cognizant of is that anytime you pass a hunter around, eventually they're going to come back to you. If they're coming back to you consistently, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to start killing the hunters off, because eventually they're going to just keep going around and around and around in a loop. And because they keep being passed back to you, you're not going to be able to reduce your cards. So a good rule of thumb with the hunter is that if you are being passed the hunter more than twice in a game, you may want to try to start killing them off if you can. All right. Or you may want to just use a hunter as a first. So that would be a situation where you're going to start using hunters as a first card and just pass 1 card over instead of passing along with the 2. So on the second round here, the token moves to the player opposite us, which means that person is going to start first. All right. And on his turn, he played the Renegade kills the Sailor, reducing his card count down to 4. All right. And then the next player has the Magician with 2 Sailors. So he was able to play 3 cards at one time, reducing his card down to 3. Now it is our turn to do a play. All right. So we will go ahead and have the archer kill the brawler. And because we want to try to keep the assassin. The assassin, again, like I explained in the last video, the assassin is a stronger card than the archer when it comes to killing, because the assassin can kill any card. So you always want to try to keep an assassin as long as possible. And then the player on the right goes ahead and play assassin kills a renegade. All right, reducing his card count down to 4. Then again, we go ahead and do the pass. We do the deal. All right. Again, we end up getting another brawler. And now always remember that each player has at least 1 hunter. So the player on the left is going to have a hunter. So you're just going to have to be prepared to be getting another hunter. So you're going to be getting 2 cards coming in. Now, that's not always the case, but most likely early in the game like this, if somebody has a hunter, they're going to try to get rid of them. The hunters can be a good thing and they can be a bad thing, because now we have 4 cards. Our count is 4, and we're in the tie with the player to the left. But if if he or she is going to pass the hunter +1, we're going to end up with 5 cards. Okay. So let's go ahead and do the pass. And again, we want to pass the lowest value card. Well, not the lowest value, but the weakest card. Not necessarily the lowest value. The thing about Death of Athazar is that you just can't be concentrating on your own hand all of the time. I know some players have a tendency to do that, but you also need to make sure that every card that has a low number or have a high value doesn't necessarily mean that it won't be useful. All right. That's just a general rule. But sometimes, and there are many situations in this game, is where you're going to want to pass the assassin and keep the brawler, particularly if you have a magician and someone passes a hunter +1. Most likely that +1 is going to be a brawler or a sailor. And if you take that risk, you can you will have a chance to get rid of 3 cards instead of 2 cards. All right, so let's go ahead and do the pass here. And again, we're going to be expecting to get a hunter +1. So after the pass, you end up with a sorcerer, a merchant, assassin, and a sailor hunter. All right. So we started off with a sailor, and eventually the sailor got back to us again, even after 1 round. Also, we want to take a look at the graveyard now. So after the second round, we had a magician and 2 sailors, a renegade, a sailor, an archer brawler, and an assassin renegade. So now our character count changes, all right? Because we have 2 sailors. We have 2 sailors, we have 1, 2, 3. We have 4 sailors, which means that there are 6 sailors left in the deck. We have, again, 2 magicians, so we have 5 magicians. No, we have an extra magician. So we have 3 magicians. All right, so that means we have 2 magicians left in the game. 1, 2. We have 2 assassins. Again, we have 5 assassins now left in the game. 1, 2. We have 2 renegades. So that's going to mean we have 2 renegades left in the game. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we have 4 brawlers now. So now our brawler count would be 5 instead of 6. And the archer stays the same. So there's 1 more archer out there in the game. All right, the token moved to the player on the right, and he has 4 cards left, 1 of which is a hunter plus another. All right, so let's see what he does. All right, now on his play, he had the magician, and he used his magician to kill off 2 hunters. All right, so he wanted to use his magician right off of the bat to make sure that no more hunters get past him. But as we can see in the diagram here, the player opposite has a hunter in his hand, and most likely, player on the player on the left is going to end up getting 2 cards on the next pass. But because he has that 1 card left, he is seriously in the lead. All right, and even with the hunter being passed to him +1, he's going to just basically get maybe 3 cards. No, I take that back. He's going to get 1 card from the deal. That would be 2, and then +2 from the pass, so he'll end up with 4. But we don't want to take that chance because we don't know what he's going to do with that last card. So anytime a player has 1 card left, we want to try to use a disruption. And even though we have a kill in our hand, this is a good opportunity for us to actually use one of our disruption cards. So our 2 disruption cards are the sorcerer and the merchant. So the question is, which one do we want to use? Which one is the most effective disruption card to use? All right, so let's kind of look at this. And look at this carefully, because I've been in many games where people have a merchant and a sorcerer, and they use them in the wrong situations. All right, so the player on the left has 1 card, so we have a merchant. And now what a merchant does is if you play that card, it will allow you to swap all your cards with someone else. If I play the merchant, that means I can swap the remaining 4 cards for the left player's 1 card. Okay. And then our other option is to use the sorcerer. Now, if I play the sorcerer, that means that I can take 1 card from my hand and pass them over an extra card. All right, so let's kind of figure out which is the best one. All right, if we play the merchant and we swap the hands, do you think it is a good idea to swap an archer, a sailor, and a hunter? Because I'm going to tell you, anytime you have a hunter +1 and someone sees a hunter, most likely you're going to get the hunter and sailor back on the next pass. All right. And also, that means that the player on the left is also going to have an extra disruption card of the sorcerer. And a lot of times when players, anytime another player in the game has an opportunity to seek revenge, they will do so. So what we want to do is we want to not try to put him in a position where the person is going to get revenge on you and possibly having the hunter +1 pass back to you on the next pass, because that's just going to mess you up on your count as well. It's going to keep you from getting rid of all your cards. So in this situation, the best card to use is the sorcerer. Now the merchant would have been better if maybe you had all sailors, because all sailors they have no power. They do absolutely nothing. But because you have that, because you have so many good cards that can help you reduce your card count, you don't want to give those cards up to another player. So the best play is to go ahead and play the sorcerer, and what we're going to do is play the sorcerer. We're going to pass over the sailor. Okay. All right. We want to pass over the sailor because that's the weakest card. He can be killed off easily anytime further in the game. So we're just going to hand that card off to the player on the left, and that is going to increase his card count by 1. All right, then the player on the right went ahead and played Assassin, killed the Brawler. Okay. All right. And then the last player had the Warrior 15 killed the Magician 7. Look at the graveyard after the update. Now we have the Magician and the 2 Hunters. So remember that there were 3 Hunters out in the play. No, actually, no, it's 4 now, because player on the right had an extra hunter. So what does that mean? That meant that on the deal phase of the last turn, he ended up getting a hunter. All right. So now that we have 2 hunters, we have 2 hunters that's in the graveyard, 2 hunters in the hands of the players. So that means we have 1 more hunter left in the game. All right, then we have a sorcerer. 1 sorcerer was played. And since the sorcerer's in the graveyard, we have 3 more sorcerers left because there are 4 sorcerers in the game. And then we had another assassin. So that is 1, 2, 3 assassins that are now in the graveyard. So that means that there are 4 assassins left, of which we have 1 of them. And then we have a warrior 15. So that means that we have about 4 more warriors left, and another magician. So we have a magician, and 2 magicians. So we have all our magicians that are eliminated from the game because all of the magicians are in the graveyard. So we don't have to worry about any player now being able to get rid of 3 cards at the same time, because now the princess is gone from the deck, and there's no one who's going to use the princess as a magician. Now expect the game from this point to basically be a pass of hunters and a game of disruptions. All right, because we still have a lot of archers left. We still have a lot of brawlers and sailors left. We still have a couple of assassins left, and definitely we have a lot of princes left. And a prince is a very strong disruption card. And we also have a lot of warriors left. All right, so this is going to be a very interesting game to see who's going to win. Now, so far, the player on the right and the left are in the lead with 2 cards. So I think this will be a good time to stop right here for the second video. Now we're going to figure out in the next round what we can do to make sure that the player on the left and the player on the right don't win the game, because they are in the lead right now. And again, you still have a couple of options. You still have that merchant, the merchant card, which is going to be used to disrupt the play. We will continue this game in the next video, and we'll try to see if we can use some more strategies to help us try to get ahead in this game. If you would like to get any more notifications of Deaths of Athazar, just go ahead and hit that notification button. Also, you can leave a comment down below. Share the video as much as possible, and don't be afraid to subscribe. So that's the end of the video, and I will see you next time.